Hello people of YouTube. Today I'm going to show a little bit about my geek side, if you will. I'm a big fan of classic video game systems. I have several game systems, but I have a collection of Atari 2600 games, and I needed a better way, more appealing way to display them, to put them up so that I can easily grab and play. So I made this thing here behind me. This is made almost completely out of scrap wood. There's only one board that I actually had to pay for. I had several pieces that I had collected from the neighborhood, people that had thrown out from different projects, and I had a dado blade that I really hadn't played much with. So I decided to give this a shot, and I made a little video of it. Let's take a look. I've taken one of these longer boards and I've cut it down to smaller pieces. These boards are leftover scrap from someone else's project, and they're not completely flat, but when you cut them down into smaller pieces, it's not so bad. I've got these cut to 3 inches by about 7 inches. That'll leave a little bit of room for the cartridges to stick out so I can pull them out. And I've got a dado blade set up here that I played around with until I got it a good enough thickness that one of these would fit in comfortably. I played around with the height until I got it to cut, fairly thin in between. I don't want it so thin it breaks. I'm going to cut all the inside ones just like I've done here, so that they're cut on both sides, and the outside one will just be cut into one side. And then I've got some trim wood that I also picked up, and I'm going to use this to nail or glue or somehow attach these together. I'm not sure, just at this point I'm making it up as I go. So I've got the blade set up for the first cut. Now let me do the first cut and I'll show you how I'm going to hopefully evenly space the cuts apart. Slide that in there where I just cut it. And I'm going to take this and let's see. So I'll throw a little piece of scrap wood in there. Side it fenced against that. Not too tight. Set that to the side. Got the fence pushed over. And the idea is when I make the next cut, it'll leave just a little lip or a little space in between. And I'll slide this down over again. Bring in my game and spacer. And now I should be set up for the next cut. So I'm down, I've got 4 cuts. I'm going for the 5th and probably last cut. And I've used my same little technique to move the fence over. And I'm becoming concerned getting farther and farther away from this blade, so the chance of this accidentally twisting and throwing something back at me is getting greater. So what I've done, take another piece of the scrap wood and put it on my little miter gauge here, because it's not enough room to fit it over there. And I'm just going to use this to help push it through, and hopefully it'll go through straight and not cause any problems. A little bit of a safety measure. At some point I'm actually going to build a little fence for this so that I can use it to play a little safer. This is what I've got so far, and it's turning out nicely. I'm happy with the way this is turning out, because I had this idea, and it's difficult to visualize. In my head, I thought this was going to end up being a lot larger than it is. So this has worked out nicely. It's not huge. Now, I measured and cut these pieces a little too long. I sat down, I did some calculations on paper to try and get an idea of how long I needed to cut these pieces, and I padded it. I padded it because I figured it would be better to have too much wood and then just trim it off than it would be to not have enough and completely screw up the project. So, I'm looking at it now, and it looks like I could actually get one more out of it, one more space. Got all the pieces that I cut lined up, and I put a cartridge in each one and slid them together. I've got a couple of the little boards that I plan on using, and to get an idea of how wide I want it, I've done this. I'm going to slide this down to the end of one of these boards. I'm going to make a mark on the other end so I know how long to cut that one. Now I'm going to cut it a little bit wider than that mark, because when I put this together, I want to leave a little bit of wiggle room for all these games. I've got the line right there, which would cut it right about here, but I'm going to slide it over, give it a little extra room. I went ahead and took the boards and trimmed them all up to the same size here, and the idea originally was to cut the edges off because these have rounded edges. If you look at it that way, I was going to trim them off so that they're square, and then possibly cut them in half and just use strips, just maybe two at the top, two at the bottom. But these fit perfectly. And this wasn't intentional, but they are a perfect width for the size of these things. So I'm going to leave them alone. I'm just going to attach two top, two bottom, just like it is, and go from there. What I'm going to do is figuring out the exact measurement to evenly space these is a bit tricky. But what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to do the ends. I'm going to go ahead and line these up and nail these ends down to where I want them. I've got both boards. Flip it over and do the same, and then with the main part of it together, work out as close to an even spacing as I can with these and nail them down. So I've already got a couple of nails started here, and I'm trying to stay out of the light, but it's hard to. And I'm going to tack these on. I think I should probably take these out of the middle for right now. Now, it's a matter of trying to squeeze these in here. I'm I'm not really surprised the nails are not holding. But you know what? I've got the holes lined up. So what I'll probably do is, after I get this all where I want it, is throw a little glue in there to hold these boards together better. This at least gives me the stability to play around with it. Fairly close right there. That's just a little bit of a gap in every one. So unfortunately for me, the fence is still set for one of the cuts that I made. It's still set where I cut these strips. Now we'll use the cheating method to measure for this side. So I've sanded this down, kind of smoothed off some of the edges, and as I was doing that, these top and bottom boards did start to come loose. So I took a moment and I pulled them off real carefully, one at a time, put a drop of glue, put them back on, and used some clamps to hold it down. Gave that a couple hours to dry, and did that one at a time until I had all of them done. And then went back around and light sanded everything. So now it's time to put it back on it. And as I test fit this, these sides are nice and perfect, or at least plenty close enough. But as far as the top and bottom, the way the ends of these slats are round doesn't quite look right. So I'm going to cut just a little bit more off and make that look a little bit smoother. Now it fits in better with the curved edges. And now it's just to maybe throw a little bit of glue and nail that down. Before I put this on, so that I know where to put the nails, I'll make a little mark right in the middle where all of these posts are, columns. Do the same here. Glue. I don't want to put too much in it, overflow, make a mess. And lastly, a little bit of stain. And it took some time to get into all the corners of this little game rack. There we go, finished product. Holds about 24 of the games. Looks very nice, very sturdy. Kind of almost a crate type feel with the trim along it, with the pieces that I used at the top. And you can kind of see up here the inspiration. But you can modify this to do other things. You could use it to do something similar for 8 tracks or cassette tapes or any number of things. Just modify the thickness of the dado blade and the width that's needed. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I thank you for watching, and stay creative.